Doctor, I have some questions here from some of my friends here in Vietnam. I want
Uh-huh.
to, oh my gosh, this first one is kind of, I don't know how to answer this, but from my bro Calvis, he says, "What is God?" That's his question for you. What is God?
Well, to me, God is the very source of conscious awareness. So God's right there at the core of any awareness in this universe. And that God force is one of love and compassion. I often use the term the love of the creator for the creation. But when you acknowledge that we co-create our emerging reality with that God force, so we have a responsibility. But that God force is what gives us the power and the energy and the capability to do this kind of growing. So that God force is just right at the very kind of nexus of awareness, awareness in the universe at large.
This question is from my bro Hung, and he's asking, what changed about you before and after the coma?
Well, I would say in many ways everything changed because before the coma, I fully subscribed to that materialist view: brain creates consciousness, birth to death, nothing more. Doubted any aspect of free will if it's all just chemical reactions, electron fluxes. And then, boom, a complete 180-degree flip, going through my NDE and going through the scientific resolution of that NDE over the last 15 years. Because it's not just the NDE itself, but working as a scientist and working with hundreds of other scientists around the world to more fully explain these kind of extraordinary human experiences, that's been the real gift. And if you want some of those other scientific viewpoints, I'm on the advisory board for two groups: scientificandmedical.net, galileocommission.org. Go to both of those and et cetera. You'll realize the scientific community is well on the pathway to explaining this far grander vision of the universe than the bleak and paltry fiction of materialist science that tries to claim that we're just material bodies without free will. Our existence is birth to death and nothing more.
Mm.
They're dead wrong. We're eternal souls. We're interconnected with each other um, in very deep and profound ways. We're all here to help each other. And that ego that's been so rampant, for example, in corporate greed, for example, the energy sector, burning carbon fuels. I mean, the climate change and crisis is absolutely shockingly real. To not acknowledge that, it shows alarming ignorance and willful ignorance at that. And it's time for all of us to take a higher form that it gets rid of this narcissistic, greedy, selfish, profiteering motive, for example, of those energy industries, and allows them to admit what energy scientists have known for more than a century, that burning carbon based fuels ultimately is going to destroy life on this planet. We need to wake up and change our ways. And the kind of awakening I'm talking about here, where we acknowledge how we're all in this together and need to take care of each other, does not allow for that kind of corporate greed of the oil industry and the coal industry to keep stripping life away from this planet by building up carbon dioxide and warming the planet to intolerable levels. I mean, just look at all
Mhm.
the fires, the floods, the droughts, the superstorms, all the tornado outbreaks. It's all getting worse and worse because mankind is still too addicted to their greed of profit in the energy industry, et cetera. So we need to wake up, and that's what this is all about.
Definitely. I just have three more questions. Is that okay?
Right? Sure.
This one is from my friend Hawk over in Kentucky. He says, "Do you have images of your brain before and after the coma to see if there's any physical changes of the brain structure?"
Well, I have a bunch of befores. The thing I don't have a lot of are the afters. In general, you would want to, you know, I'd have to fund that, getting an
Mm.
MRI scan, for example, and I don't have that kind of evidence. So I wish
Mm.
that they'd done EEGs when I was down. In fact, the doctors thought I was so far gone from this meningitis that it wasn't even worth getting an EEG. I wish they'd gotten EEGs. That would have helped to document, because we know what happens to other brains with a severe meningitis like that. They either have burst suppression or just a flat line. And that's what happens to a brain within 20 seconds of cardiac arrest is flatline. But this would have been far, far, far worse damage with a week-long course of E. coli bacterial meningoencephalitis. I mean, that brain was in horrible shape. And that's why so many in the scientific community, like I said, they take this case, my case, as extremely important because all the little arguments you might make about a cardiac arrest patient brain still being capable of doing many normal things, my brain was completely incapable of anything normal like conscious awareness. And that's one of the important things of that case report on my medical records.
And the doctors who were taking care of you during that time, like they didn't expect you to recover, right? They thought you would be like in the
Right.
vegetable state.
Right. Well, that's pretty much what anybody would conclude based on that week in coma with the severe parameters in my case. My Glasgow coma scale, which in you or me would be 15. In a corpse, it's 3. Anything below 9 is deep coma. My coma scale was 6 to 7 for most of that week, if not 5. There was one brief moment of 11 in the emergency room where I cried out, God help me. And just by saying words, that all of a sudden kicked up my Glasgow Coma Scale level. I don't remember saying those words. I was very far gone from this world. I think that's kind of an artificial value, but for most of the week, I was a 6 or 7 and probably as low as a 5, absent oculocardiac reflex, other things like that. So extremely ill from this case of bacterial meningoencephalitis.
The next question is from Ngọc An in Vietnam, and she's asking, what can people do to help a family member to recover mentally after brain surgery due to a stroke?
I think the best thing is to interact with them. I mean, you've got to have a good pattern of interaction and also giving them a break because the healing process demands not just the active, attempts at healing, but plenty of resting in between and giving them, especially if they're still kind of deep. Uh, I know of people who have, for example, just told family stories or music that they might have enjoyed when they were younger to play this over headphones, things like that. Music, sound, kind of ongoing communication. These can all be things to bring them back and never forget the power of prayer, centering prayer. Um, in prayer, the visions definitely get through to that level. I mean, that's something I saw very solidly in my own journey was the power of prayer was made obvious to me in some of those visions I had in the journey. And so just remember to join with them within the mental realm through prayer and meditation, but also be there sharing stories, old family stories to help kind of jog memories, music they may have loved, things like that that can be delivered with headphones, via streaming, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all ways to just kind of keep them connected to this world.
Mhm. Yeah, my dad, he had a stroke back in 2019. Um,
Mm-hmm.
luckily he recovered. The doctors
Good.
gave him a 50-50 chance, I think,
Well,
but
I'm glad he recovered.
luckily he
Yeah.
recovered. It took him about 3 years to fully
Wow.
recover. So actually the
Yeah.
last question for you is from my dad. How did you heal? Like physically, how did you heal yourself?
Well, it was, I needed some physical therapy for about 6 weeks after I first got out of coma. I had some balance troubles and some weakness issues. And since then, I've just meditate. Like I said, I meditate an hour to a day. If you need a powerful tool for meditation, go to sacredacoustics.com. You'll find what you need. And I also do a lot of physical exercise. Luckily, my older son, who's now a practicing physician, but back in those days, he worked as a fitness trainer in a very busy Washington, D.C. area gym, and he has given me a whole set of exercises. So I do a lot of physical strengthening, calisthenics, things like that, and that's helped tremendously. But there's no question that the meditation has been absolutely central to a lot of my recoveries over the last 15 years.
Amazing. Doctor, do you have any final message for our listeners today?
I think the main thing is no soul left behind. This is a tremendous and powerful revolution. We live in an amazingly interesting time. In many ways, questions that have lingered for 5,000 years are finally starting to come together into some meaningful answers. And you don't have to wait for the entire world and scientific community to get up to speed on this. But if you start studying this material now, start meditating, start taking advantage of a lot of what we've talked about in the last hour, you'll find that those advantages can come to you. And the world at large will benefit tremendously the more souls we have waking up to the primacy of consciousness and the binding force of love, and that we're all truly here to help each other. So it's a gift.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexander. I hope we can meet again, hopefully in
Yes,
person in
that'd be great.
Virginia.
Do that again sometime. And thanks for having me on. And thanks for sharing this with your audience. I'm so glad for any that we're able to help.